The question about purposes of education is being raised across the world. And Nigeria as a country is not an exception. And today we're going to be looking at one of the purposes of education in Nigeria. As a matter of fact, I read a lot of people's comments, reviews and the likes. And sometimes on my social media pages, I see, people say, Nigeria is this, Nigeria is that, our education is blah, blah, blah. But honestly, of the truth, we will realize that if we look into our policy document, as always, anyways, we always have nice, documents, that actually is supposed to guide us as a nation. But when we have the issue, the concern is always the implementation of these policies. But what am I trying to say now? What I'm trying to say now with this video is to tell us that no matter how expensive or how affordable a school might be in our country, be it public or private school, there is a limit or a minimum of quality standard that every school must meet. And why am I emphasizing this? I'm emphasizing this because after all the education that we're going to be gathering in our nation, we all are going to come back into the society. Yes, the society. Whether you go to a premium school, maybe you go to a very affordable school, all of us, we are going back into the society. And this is where we have to be concerned. Our children who goes to schools where they pay millions of naira, our children who go to schools where they pay hundreds of thousands, and those who pay tens of thousands, even those who go to public school where they don't pay school fees, they are all going to come back into society to actually make sure that we live together in peace and harmony. And this brings me to where we are today. If we look at our roads, which is a public property, we realize that some of us will violate traffic rules, whether knowingly or unknowingly. But one of the most dangerous aspects of this traffic rule is where someone actually drive against traffic, which we call one way. Yes. When we have situations whereby people actually, fight over things that are not necessary, situation whereby we jump queues, where we're supposed to be orderly, we are not orderly. We look into situations where people prefer, they take things that do not belong to them. You will forget something inside the vehicle, and then another passenger will pick it without even notifying the driver. These are common things across the world, not just peculiar to our nation alone. But where we are having concern is where we have this, vices very rampant and common, and we need to look into how do we reduce all of these vices in our nation. Now, the question is, the education that we give to ourselves in Nigeria, does it have a purpose? Yes, it does. As a matter of fact, according to the National Policy on Education in Nigeria, the current edition is the 2013 6th edition. If you look into the document, we are going to be seeing that there are 5 goals that have been set which serve as the purposes of education. These are the things we need to achieve with education in our country. And furthermore, there are other 6 specific purposes that we intend to use education to achieve as a nation. But I'll be looking into one of the first 5 out of the total of 11, which is an extract from the goals that has been set from the national constitution, or from the constitution of Nigeria. Pardon. Now, the first one says, our education has a purpose of developing the individual into a morally sound, patriotic, and effective citizen. The development of the individual into morally sound, patriotic, and effective citizen. A morally sound person who has been educated in Nigeria is expected not to face traffic or not to drive against the traffic. Yes. The morally sound person is expected not to jump the queue. We are expected to be patient. But saying these things will look like, what is this guy saying? What is this person saying? How do we achieve this? Yes, it is possible for us to achieve it if the quality of early childhood education that you and I pass through was what it should be. Education domain is in three phases, or is in three domains. Let me put it that way. We have the cognitive, we have the psychomotor, and we have the affective learning domain. The way we behave amongst ourselves, our interpersonal relationship, falls under the affective learning domain. But it is unfortunate today that when our children come with their results after examination, we focus on the scores that my child got in mathematics. My child got 18%, 80%, my child got 90%. My child is the first person in the class. My child got the second position. My child got the third position in class. It has always been our focus. The report sheets that we come home with, or our children come home with, these report sheets will always have three domains designed on it, especially for those of us who are interested in developing a total child, not just a brilliant child. We are not looking at just a brilliant child. We're looking at a child who is going to be intelligent and at the same time translate the intelligence into a proper interpersonal relationship with people and the society. So what do we need to look into? I am encouraging us today that at the end of this term, second term 2013, 2023, 2024 academic session, at the end of this term, let us ensure to look into the affective learning domain of the result that our children will be bringing back home. And not just that, because some of the times we could just see excellent, excellent and the likes. Sometimes we need to question, sometimes we need to observe. If you see a remark of excellence for your child as being patient, being patient, you need to ask yourself, has my child been patient in the house? Does my child take instructions? A child that does not take instruction will not obey rules in the society. Yes. Because if you don't take instructions and you go away with it, you also believe that when you disobey rules, you can always find a way around it. So we are now saying that let's look beyond the cognitive aspect of saying mathematics, English, and the likes. These are the scores my child got. Let us now look into how our children will be more responsible, regardless of whatever level of education that we can afford for our children. And as a matter of fact, in Nigeria, the minimum level of education that we can attain now, before any certificate will be issued, is a junior secondary school 3 education, GSS 3. That is where it is expected that the first school leaving certificate is issued. That is as a result of the modification in the National Policy on Education, the 2013 edition. That translates to the fact that we need to make sure that every citizen of Nigeria has a minimum education of 15 years. Yes. So if you look into this, we will realize that this period of education is something that we need to actually help our children, to address. Oh, sorry, not 15 years, it is 10 years. The 15 years covers up to senior secondary school. So, but from pre-primary education, which is the kindergarten, according to the national policy, age 5, we have a 1-year compulsory pre-primary education for children of age 5 before they get to primary 1. That is 1 year. Then we have 6 years of primary education. If we add that to the 1 year, that is 7 years. Then we now have 3 years of junior secondary school, JSS 1, 2, and 3, which total to 10 years of basic education before a child will get the first school leaving certificate, considering the modification in the 2013 edition of our National Policy on Education. So what am I saying again? I am saying that our society is what our society is because the affective learning domain that actually affects our behavior as human beings has actually been neglected. We need to look into it. This affective learning domain, if we take a look at every report sheet of any school, this affective domain, this is where we are going to be having patience, you know, orderliness, empathy, obedience, kindness, and the likes, endurance, and all of those things. These are the areas we need to look into it, and that is why our teaching practices in Nigeria, even in our classrooms, must actually ensure that we cover these three domains, not just about how intelligent or brilliant a child should be. I want to believe that when we look into this area as parents, not just as school, as parents, schools will do their own part, but we say you as parents, you should have your own expectations. Yes, your expectations might not be right, but with this type of advocacy that we are going to be putting out for us, we know exactly what to look out for. Every child needs to be, supported. Yes, every child needs to be supported so that they can be morally sound, patriotic, and effective citizen in our nation. And this can be achieved if we focus on this right from early childhood education. Yes, early childhood education is the education we give to children from age 0 to age 8 across the world. So we are saying that if we look at our children from birth up to 8 years old, and we are able to make sure that the quality of early childhood education we give to them is the one that every child should have according to the standard of education across the world, we are going to realize that the vices in our society will be minimal. Then we now have people who solve problems.